and welcome back to another episode of the Freelancer's Tea Break, the short and sweet podcast you can enjoy whilst you're making a cuppa. So, let's talk about confidence today, and this is something that affects everybody at different points in their freelance career, whether it's confidence even getting started and finding clients to dealing with a bit of a confidence knock. And this is in particular what I want to deal with. What happens when you have your confidence knocked? And it can happen in a variety of different ways. It could be with a difficult client. It can be even going to a networking event and fluffing your words, or at a talk or anything like that. There's lots of different ways that we can have our confidence knocked. And that's life. We are always encountering things that can sometimes knock our confidence. But there are certain things that can sometimes help a little bit with this. So I thought I'd share some tips if you have experienced this, or maybe you want to lock this away for a time that you are feeling a bit more wobbly. So the first thing I would say is sometimes with like a particular situation where we feel like our confidence has been knocked, I recommend something that I learned from a book called Positive Intelligence. I'm just a book now, actually, which is all about kind of how we reframe things. One of the things I learned from that was that from every situation, positive or negative, we need to look at it and think, what was the gift here, or what was the lesson? And I found that really helps reframe the situation. So rather than it just being a deeply negative situation that I struggled to get around, I can look at what I've taken from that situation, what has improved, what have I learned, even if sometimes it's learning what boundaries I need to put in place, or what I need to update about my contract, or what red flags I need to look at in the future. Or so I'm going to give you an example. Many years ago, I did some freelancing for a training company, and I turned up at a session. It was not the session I thought it was, so I brought the wrong notes. I couldn't get Wi-Fi, so I couldn't download the correct slides. So I was trying to kind of work my way through it. And then the slides that came up were not the slides that I was used to using. So I felt like every single slide that came up wasn't working. I couldn't get the laptop to sync to the presentation screen. It was a disaster. But it was a disaster that still gave me some wins, not some wins, but some kind of gifts and lessons. So very much that was a big lesson in making sure I'm completely organised before I went to something. I think I'd done a few and I just got a bit lazy about things. That made me come up with a checklist of all the things that I needed to check before I went in, have backups, work out what kind of things I can do if there's any problems. So that really helped on that front. It really tightened up on my processes. It also, I guess, was a lesson in how to deal with unhappy customers or clients, and how to deal with that. So although it was a really embarrassing, difficult situation, I did take away a lot of things that have improved my business going forward. So even though it was a really difficult situation, it did help my business moving forward. I became more organized. I became much better at creating alternative scenarios and what might go wrong. Just generally planning ahead a little bit more, which as an ADHD person can be quite challenging. So essentially, if you have something that has rocked your confidence, I would love it if you could look at that situation and go, okay, what have I learned from that situation? Or what was the gift here? Sometimes it can be like a difficult discovery call, and the gift is that you saw the red flags early and you dodged that bullet. And sometimes it can be like my situation. Yeah, it was fairly awful, but there are things in place now that are really, really positive for me. So there are very few situations which are 100% completely negative. There are obviously some situations that happen to us that are horrendous, but I think what I'm trying to say is, from general business situations, applying this logic of finding the gift or the lesson can really help reframe things and help you move forward a little bit. So the second thing I would recommend you do is go have a look at, I have something called a praise file, or I actually call it a lovely things file. So whenever someone replies to a newsletter and says something lovely, or I get a nice response on social media, or there's been a lovely comment or anything like that, I save it into a folder in my Gmail. And it just means that I have something that I can go back to and go, look, I'm not totally awful. There's all these lovely things that people are saying about me. And sometimes you need to present actual evidence to your brain that will sort of explain that, yes, sometimes we can get bad feedback, sometimes we have bad situations, but that isn't reflective of how we are entirely. There is lots of lovely things that people are saying about us as well. So if you haven't already started some kind of praise file or lovely things file, I would highly recommend doing it. You might also want to, and this kind of is a similar thing, but have a look through your testimonials. Go have a look on LinkedIn and what people have been saying about you. And have a look on, hopefully you've got some testimonials on your website if you have it, or social media. Go back and look at those. And I know it's really easy for your brain to go, oh, well, they were just being nice, or, oh, people always have to be polite with testimonials and things like that. If people don't like what you do, they're not going to give you a testimonial. So those testimonials are real, and it really helps to go back and have a look at these sorts of things. I also want to say, if you have had a situation like a bad client or really bad feedback, but the feedback is really unclear, or you just feel like it's personal, sometimes it helps to take a step back and go, was this about me or was this more about them? And that can help a little bit to give yourself some distance on these things, and assess whether actually you've done a bad job, or whether it's just that person's mood or the way they work. Some people power play. Unfortunately, there are going to be a couple of clients out there that will do power plays and will try and even make people feel bad, or get out of paying. There's so many different reasons people can do that. I would say that they're minority, but they do happen. And it's really useful to get some distance and say, was this about me or was this about them? The next thing I'd love you to do is reach out to others. Please don't internalize this and not talk to others about it. Even if it feels like it's a bit embarrassing, there's every chance other freelancers have gone through something similar. In my Facebook group or the Discord, please do feel free to come over and chat in there. But otherwise, it's really useful to have other freelance friends who you can talk to about these things. If you're really struggling to get over these sorts of things, or there's a particular situation you can't get past, book a coaching call or a mentor call. And those are really good ways of working through it and verbally processing it. And verbally processing is something I only learned in the last sort of 5-10 years, how important it is to be able to say out loud some of these things can really help our brain to process them. So I highly recommend talking to someone about it. And then the final thing is, and I've mentioned the comfort zones before, they are essentially a series of circles inside of each other. In the very center is the comfort zone. This is the area where you feel safe, you know what you're doing, but there's no growth that comes from the comfort zone. It's a lovely place to hang out, but you're not going to get any better or feel more confident if you don't move outside it. So it's okay to spend time in the comfort zone, but you then want to move out really to the growth, to the fear zone, which is the next one, which is where you're doing something new, and it can be a bit scary. So it might be signing up to a networking event, or to do a talk, or to pitch to a new client. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can just be slightly outside your comfort zone. But by doing that and going through the fear zone, you then move into the growth zone. And then that means that you're growing as a person and a business owner, and your skill set will improve. And the really great thing about that is that will make your comfort zone larger, because you'll then have those skills under your belt, and there'll be more things that you're comfortable about. And that's what we want to do. We don't want to have a teeny tiny comfort zone. And when you go through something like this, where it rocks your confidence, there is time when you need to be spending in the comfort zone just to kind of recover. But then it's really important that you start to edge outside it, that you build your confidence back up again, because that confidence is not going to come from just staying in your comfort zone. You do have to slightly push yourself out and do something new, or do something that, even it could be just talking on Instagram stories, or dropping a message to a friend so you can go on their podcast, or posting in a Facebook group looking for clients. It can be a small thing. It doesn't have to be massive. But that will help rebuild your confidence a little bit. So I hope that has helped. I'm hoping that you won't have actually had to deal with anything that has rocked your confidence, but it is life. We do all face these things, and it's how we grow as people. So hopefully some of these can be techniques that you can find useful. So have a wonderful freelance week, everybody, and I will see you in the next episode.